Ma'am, proceed.
Yes, sir, you may.
Yes, ma'am. State your name, please.
Donna Taylor,
And what do you do for a living?
custom cabinets and countertops.
And in the cabinet shop, just very briefly, what is that business entail?
We do commercial and residential custom cabinets and countertops, plastic laminate countertops, just anything to do with custom cabinets. This kind of work here, we've done a couple of jury rooms, trim.
We'll go into this in more detail in a few minutes. Do you know Eddie Ralph?
Yes, sir.
And how do you know Eddie?
Lifelong friend of his mother since we were about 13 years old. I've known Eddie for 27 years.
Before he went to the Marine Corps in high school, you saw him on occasion. He went to serve our country. He came back. When he came back from the Marine Corps, was he a different person than he was before he went to the Marine Corps?
Most certainly.
And help the jury understand how he was different.
He just seemed distant. He seemed disturbed, just not like, fun-loving Eddie. He just seemed bothered.
Did he ever talk about what was bothering you and like that?
A little bit. He was just bothered. Something was bothering him. We tried to talk to him. We tried to get him to tell us what was bothering him.
And what did he do at the cabinet shop?
He built face frames, drawers, hung doors, just everything entailed, made countertops, and he did a good job. Real attentive.
Did he have to learn on the job? Did he have carpentry skills kind of that?
A little bit. He kind of knew the idea because his dad had worked with me also, but he kind of had the idea of what we were doing.
He was at work on Friday the 1st.
Yes, sir. I dropped him off at his house about 4 o'clock on February the 1st. I gave him a ride. His mom usually brought him to work, and then I would take him home and just ask him what he was going to do for the weekend. He said he didn't really have any plans, might hang out with his girlfriend, just hang around.
How did he get to work that day, you know?
I think his mom brought him. She was going out of town that day, so I'm pretty sure she probably brought him to work that day.
You recall what time he got to work?
7. We started 7 till 3:30.
How did his appearance, how did he seem at work at times when he'd be in the shop? How did he appear?
He did fine most of the time. Every once in a while, I would go in the shop and he would be kind of in I would call it like a catatonic state, just staring straight ahead, like a blank look on his face, just wondering maybe, or trying to reconcile his mind maybe with what was going on. He just wasn't the same. He just wasn't the same with whatever he experienced.
In that catatonic state, would you approach him and try to talk to him?
Yes, sir, I would. Every time I'd ask him if I could help him anyway. Do you want to talk? Can I get you anything? You're okay? Most of the time he would say he's okay and would move on.
Was he in that catatonic state on February the 1st of 2013?
Not that I recall, no, sir.
Thank you. I'll pass witness, Your Honor.
So you don't know why he was in those catatonic states, do you?
I felt like it was his experience from being overseas. That's my opinion.
That's your opinion.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but you didn't inquire as to all other possible causes for those catatonic states he showed at the shop.
No, sir.
You didn't never asked about drug use,
No, sir.
whether he's hungover.
No, sir.
Did he get along with his coworkers?
Yes, sir.
So he could work with others with tools at the shop, and did he ever act like he was frightened of his coworkers?
No, sir. I don't think so. No.
We got along well with him.
Yes, sir.
Now in the cabinet shop, y'all use loud tools, and right?
Yes, sir. That's why I speak so loud, I'm sure. Yes, sir.
Fair enough.
Yes, sir.
Steel saw is allowed.
Yes,
tool,
sir.
isn't it?
It's all loud. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And sawdust flying everywhere.
Exactly.
Hard work.
Yes, sir.
And the defendant was able to use these tools,
Most certainly.
and he was around people who were using them all day long.
Yes, sir.
And he never had any problems with his coworkers.
Not that I'm aware of. No, sir.
Did you know that in the Marine Corps he actually qualified as a marksman?
Yes, sir, I do.
And that's quite an accomplishment.
Most certainly it is.
And did you know him to go hunting with firearms and go to the gun range with friends after he got out of the Marine Corps?
Hunting, yes. We have a little place in Corsicana. He came down there a couple of times, go dove hunting, quail hunting, yes, sir, with shotgun. I don't know with friends. I mean, he came down there with his cousin one time, I guess.
Okay. So he stayed involved in shooting sports after he got out of the Marine Corps.
Yes, sir.
On February the 1st, you dropped him off at 4 o'clock,
Yes, sir.
and he'd been well enough to work that day. Had you observed, and you hadn't observed any of those catatonic states on that day.
Not that I recall. No, sir.
But now we're hitting Friday, and you take him home, and you discuss with him his plans, and was there anything out of the ordinary that he described about his plans for the weekend?
Not really. I knew his mom and dad were out of town, and I was just concerned with what he was going to do over the weekend. He just said he didn't know, really. He just kind of hang out with his girlfriend.
So he's got the house to himself.
Yes, sir.
His girlfriend's coming over.
Yes, sir.
And did he seem confused when you dropped him off at 4 on Friday the 1st?
No, just maybe a little depressed, just a little, down. Not really. I don't think he was confused.
Was he saying anything bizarre when you drove him home?
No, sir.
So he was talking normal that day?
Yes, sir.
Seemed with his wits?
Yes, sir.
And he'd been well enough to handle the tools that day?
Yes, sir.
Hadn't gotten any fights with his coworkers that day?
No, sir.
And just to be clear, now you never went back behind the building and smoked marijuana with him?
No, sir. No, sir. I was not aware of that at all.
So if
Ever.
So if that happened, he kept it from you?
Yes, sir.
This catatonic state that you'd seen him in, you concluded that that's because of his military service. Is that based on information that you got from Jody?
Actually, from Eddie and Jody, both. Yes, sir.
Okay, so they both attributed it to his military service.
Yes, sir.
Did they ever express concern that maybe he had a drug problem?
No, sir. Not to me.
Did they ever express frustration with the VA?
Most certainly. Yes, sir.
Did they ever express frustration that the VA was requiring him, as part of his treatment, to participate in a drug treatment program?
No, sir. I was not aware of that.
So they never talked about that.
No, sir.
Did they ever talk about how the VA, they were frustrated with the VA because they wouldn't let him participate in the PTSD program in Waco because he wouldn't demonstrate a period of time of sobriety?
No, sir.
So they never explained any of that to you?
No, sir.
All they talked about was his mental problems or because of the military service.
Correct. Yes,
They
sir.
never talked about any of his problems being attributable to needing drug treatment.
No, sir.
So you're just going off what you were told?
Yes, sir.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Did Jody approach you about taking possession of some guns that belonged to the Routh family?
Yes, sir.
Is that January the 19th that happened?
Approximately 20th, that holiday, she was off from work, and yes, sir.
Did she explain to you that she needed you to keep those guns because the defendant had threatened to kill him, to kill his family and kill himself?
Yes, sir.
And on that occasion, was your understanding once he threatened to kill his family, that he went to a mental hospital instead of going to jail?
Yes, sir.
And did you, at her request, take possession of those firearms?
I did.
Now, she told you it was because of depression and PTSD, right?
Yes, sir.
But she did explain to you that he had threatened to kill his family at that time?
Yes, sir. I knew about that. Yes, sir.
And at some point, those guns were given back to the defendant. Is that right?
No, sir.
Well,
They were not.
Where are those guns now?
They're in his father's possession. When they moved from Lancaster in March of 13, I took the guns there and we moved them to Hereford, Texas.
Okay.
He never was in possession of those guns, ever.
Never got those guns back.
No, sir. Eddie did not. No, sir. His father, Raymond, took the guns back.
Okay.
Eddie was already incarcerated.
Oh, so the guns didn't go back till he was already in jail.
That's just when they moved. They moved from their house in Lancaster to Hereford. So he wanted to take them to Hereford.
But at that time, she was, as of January the 19th, she was concerned enough about the safety of the family that she gave you those guns.
Yes, sir.
How many guns are we talking about?
Maybe 6. I don't know exactly. Shotguns. They're old guns, a couple of new guns, but they belonged to Raymond's father. They were inherited.
Now, at some point around that time, Sue, is that about the time the defendant was released from the VA hospital?
A little bit after that, yes, sir. Maybe maybe 4 or 5 days later. I don't know exactly, 25th, 26th, maybe somewhere around in there.
Did you ever go visit the defendant in the VA?
No,
hospital?
sir, I did not.
But you kept track of how he was doing?
Yes, sir. Very concerned.
Did, he was in there several days, wasn't he?
Yes, sir.
And during that time, did you ever take him any marijuana to use at the VA hospital?
No, sir.
Did Jody?
No, sir. Not that I am aware of. No, sir.
So is it, you're pretty sure there was a period of time there when he was in the VA hospital, he didn't have any access to drugs?
Yes, sir.
Now, he went right back the very day he was released and started doing marijuana again. Isn't that right?
I couldn't answer to that. I don't really know about that.
His mother didn't mention anything to you about the very day he was released, he went back to smoking marijuana?
That response would be based on hearsay and I object.
No, sir.
There was no mention of that.
No, sir.
So you were not aware of that.
No, sir.
Now, what did you know about an incident where the defendant held a knife in an apartment with his girlfriend Jen and her roommate Gabriella Lucero? What do you know about that incident?
I knew about it. I don't think that he was threatening to them. I think he was protecting them.
Is that and you got that information from Jody?
Yes, sir.
And that was the incident that instead of him going, there was another incident right a few weeks before this murder, these killings happened. That was an incident that resulted in his hospitalization the last time. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So instead of going to jail, he ended up going to a mental hospital that time as well.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And all the information you have about that incident is from Jody.
Yes, sir.
And her position was he was protecting the girlfriend and her roommate.
Yes, sir.
Past witness.
No further questions, Alan.
All right, you missed it,
Would
Ben.
you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
My name is Gaines Blevins.
Go ahead. Okay. Gaines, you are Laura Blevins' husband, correct?
Yes, sir.
You are Eddie Ralph's brother-in-law.
Yes, sir.
Did you know Eddie before he went in the military?
I did not.
You just knew him when he got out of the military?
And while he was in, I knew him while he was in the military as well.
Okay. When he got out of the military, did you see him very often?
Not real often. Occasionally.
You remember back on February 2nd of 2013, correct?
Yes, sir.
About 5:30, 5:45 in the afternoon, where were you?
I was at home.
And who all was at home with you?
It was just myself and my wife, Laura.
Do you recall that was a Saturday?
That sounds right.
Did you have an occasion to talk to Eddie Ralph on that Saturday, February 2nd of 2013?
Yes, sir.
When did you first come in contact with him?
In person, or I spoke with him on the phone briefly.
Okay. You recall about what time that was?
It was probably a little after 5. He asked if we would be home, and I said yes. And so he said he was coming over.
Was that about the extent of the telephone conversation?
That was it. Yes, sir.
And did he in fact come over?
He did.
About what time did he get to your house?
It was around 5:30 to 5:45.
And where were you when he drove up to your house?
I was sitting on a couch in the living room.
Did he come knock on the door? Did you go outside? How did that happen?
We actually had our doors open that day. It was actually a nice day outside with the doors open, so the breeze was blowing in. and we heard him pull up, and he walked right in. So
Did he walk in your house?
yes, sir.
Was that unusual?
Not entirely, no.
Uh, what was he like? What was his demeanor?
He seemed to not be there completely. He seemed confused. He wasn't his normal self.
Did he say, did y'all have a conversation?
Yes, sir.
What was the conversation?
The first thing he said was, is it just me or is the world freezing over?
That's the first thing he said when he walked in
That's
the door?
the first thing I recall him saying. Yes, sir.
And what was your reaction?
I didn't really know what to say. The hair on the back of my neck stood up a little bit. Just his demeanor, the way he said it.
Just didn't seem like it was Eddie.
Correct.
And did you ask him, what the heck did you mean by that?
Yes, sir.
What did you say?
He didn't really have an answer. He babbled about other incoherent things.
Did he eventually say something that concerned you greatly?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
He stated that he had taken some souls, and when my wife asked him what he meant, he said he took 2 souls before they could take his.
So Laura is standing there listening to this.
Yes, sir.
Did you know what that meant?
Not entirely. I had a sick feeling on what it meant.
Did you ask him what it meant?
Laura did. Yes.
Or what did he say?
He said he had shot 2 people.
When he told you and Laura that, what was your reaction?
I and Laura both tried to tell him we need to get help and get the police.
And what was his reaction?
He still seemed confused, like he didn't know what was going on. He actually said he didn't know what he should do. So we tried to convince him we need to contact the police, and he said he thinks he should just go.
And did he go?
Yes, sir.
Did you walk outside with him? Or?
Yeah, yes, I did. Actually, Laura was trying to. When Laura was questioning about it, it seemed like he thought we didn't truly believe what he was saying, and he said something along the lines of he still has the guns in the truck, and he offered to show them to us. And at that point, I told him he should just leave. So
he didn't show you the gun?
no, sir.
But he offered to show you the gun?
Yes, sir.
About how long was he at your house that day?
It was probably about 15 minutes.
And did the majority of this conversation take place inside the house?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever walk out and see what he was driving?
I could see it from where I was sitting in the house because the door was open.
Big black truck.
Yes, sir.
Did y'all talk about what he was doing with the truck?
We asked him about it, and he said, actually, Laura asked him if he traded his Bug because he had a Volkswagen Beetle, and he said he traded his soul for it.
And when he left, what did y'all do?
We locked up the house and got in the car and started headed towards the police station. And Laura was on the phone with 911.
Did you also talk with 911?
I did.
And y'all talked to 911, kept them on the line until you got to the Lancaster, to the
Midlothian.
Midlothian police.
Yes, sir.
How far is that from your house?
Probably 4 miles or so.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Y'all pass it.
I'll pass the witness.
He didn't appear drunk when he came over, did he?
No.
Didn't smell like alcohol, did he?
No, sir.
Didn't smell like marijuana, did he?
No, sir.
You smelled marijuana before, hadn't you?
Yes, sir.
Stays on your clothes, doesn't it?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Cigarette smoke.
Yes, sir.
You didn't smell, you were how close to him that day?
I was within a couple of feet from him.
And you didn't smell
No, sir.
alcohol or marijuana?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'll pass it.
I have nothing further.
You may be seated. You may step down. You may proceed.
Now, would you state your name for the record, please?
Laura Blevins.
And do you know Eddie Ralph?
Yes, sir.
And what's your relationship to Eddie?
He would be my little brother.
And then after Eddie got out of the Marines, what kind of relationship did y'all have?
I mean, we're friends. He's my brother. We hang out sometimes, or we did, and I mean, I don't know.
Did you come into contact with Eddie on that day?
February 2nd? Yes, I did.
How did you first get contacted by Eddie on the 2nd?
He called my cell phone.
And how did you react when he called? Did you even want to answer?
No,
Why not?
because of his, prior outburst or whatever you want to call it with Jen.
Well, can you elaborate for that just a little bit on what you mean by prior outburst?
I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I know that he was taking to Green Oaks again, and I just about had my limit with that. I just couldn't do it anymore. It was too much of I didn't know if he would have an outburst or, go on the tangent like he would with my child around, and I didn't want her to be subjected to that.
Okay. When you say tangent, tell me what you mean by he would go on a tangent.
He would talk about stuff that had no relevance to what our conversation was, and he would just talk out of the blue. Like, for instance, we were talking one day and he's like, I'm really ready to hit those slopes. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, we're going to go skiing. And I was like, I've never been skiing. I'm not going skiing. I would probably break my neck. And then he's like, what are you talking about? He didn't even realize that he was talking about skiing. And so that was just too much for me to handle. And then after I found out that there was a knife involved, that had pushed my limits for him being around my child.
Okay. When you say that there was a knife involved, you're talking about the incident with Jen Weed
Yes, sir.
that got him put in the Green Oaks Hospital.
Yes, sir.
And how long had that happened before February 2nd when you were?
I know that it was in January sometime. I'm not sure of the date. I knew that he wasn't quite right, and I was not going to let him be that way. I wanted him to have treatment.
Okay, so when he gets there, are your fears realized about the talking the nonsense?
At first, he walked in and I said hi, and I could tell he wasn't quite himself, but I mean, he's my brother. I love him. So I was like, hey, what's up? How's it going? And he started talking, and the things he was saying, I knew that he was not himself.
How did you know that? What was he saying?
Well, he was talking about pigs sucking his soul, and he said I can't remember everything he said. I'm sorry. But that was one thing that stuck out to me because that's bizarre.
Okay. Were you, at this point, were you concerned?
Not exactly. I mean, I knew that he wasn't quite right and that I was probably going to have to make that call because I wanted him to be not at my house acting that way. But I was unsure. And then he sat down at our dining room table and he started talking. And he said he killed 2 guys. I asked him who. He said, I don't know. I said, what do you mean you killed 2 people? I didn't really believe him because he said crazy stuff before. I mean, he's never said that, but I just didn't believe it because he was not talking the way he normally would.
So then you began to get concerned though after he said that.
Yeah, absolutely. I told him, what are you talking about? Who? And he finally said, Kyle. And I said, Kyle, who's Kyle? And he goes, Chris Kyle. And I was like, I don't even know who that is. And then I realized, oh yeah, my mom had said something about maybe getting them together to go hang out or something. And I said, where were you? What was happening? And he said they had gone to a gun range.
And did he tell you what happened at the gun range?
No, he just said they were at a gun range.
Okay. Did he ever make any statement about taking their souls?
Yeah, he said that he took their souls before they could take his. And I asked him what he meant by that, and he said that they were out to get him.
Did he also make a reference to his soul in regard to the truck?
He did. He said he sold his soul for a pickup. And I said, so you traded in your ladybug? Because he had a VW Beetle that was painted as a ladybug. And he said, well, no. And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, that's just what I mean.
So eventually, did you start talking about calling the police?
Yeah, I told him, I said, if this is true, if you've honestly killed someone, you've got to turn yourself in. You can't go around killing people. And he said, well, that's okay because I'm going to Oklahoma.
At this point, were you still in a state of disbelief, or did you believe?
Absolutely. I could not believe that this was true. I just thought he was talking. The word I would like to use is not appropriate. He was talking nonsense.
That day, on February the 2nd, when you spoke with Eddie, was he himself?
No. The man that was my brother, it was not at my house. The person who came to my house was not who I know is my brother.
So shortly thereafter, after you start talking about calling the police, he leaves. Gaines tells him to get in the truck and drive.
Right. Well, actually, I told him I was going to call the police and I was trying to, walk him out the door because our doors and windows were open because it was a beautiful day outside. And when I started walking outside, I saw a pickup truck and I knew that he could not afford that pickup truck. And it kind of took me back. I felt like I was going to throw up because I thought, this could be a real possibility, but I still couldn't believe that that was actually what was happening or had happened. And I stood on the edge of my porch and he was in the drive because it's a little up. So I looked him in his eyes and I told him, I love you, but I hate your demons. And for a moment, he was my little baby brother and he looked at me in his eyes and I could tell he needed me, but it was like it switched back so fast that he became this person I didn't know anymore. And he said something, it was inaudible to me. I could not understand what he was saying. And Gaines yelled at him, get out of here. And I went back inside. I called my uncle and I said, what is going on? He said, I don't know. I immediately hung up and I called the Midlothian Police Department.
Okay, you said it switched back. You said
Right.
For a minute, that was your little brother. He turned and looked at you, but he switched back. At that point, tell me what you're thinking.
Well, he just felt, when I was looking at him, he kind of looked like he was out of it, almost in a daze or something. And when I told him that I loved him, it was like there was something in him that understood that. And when I said, I hate your demons, it was like he shut back down.
I'll pass the witness.
We'll pass the witness.
I don't have any further questions.
All right, you may step down. You may proceed.
Thank you. Would you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
My name is Jennifer Weed.
You know Eddie Ralph, don't you?
Yes.
Your name has been mentioned quite often up until now. How did you meet Eddie?
We originally started talking on a dating website.
And do you remember about when that was?
We first met in April, so probably March of 2012.
And once you met on the dating website, did you eventually meet in person?
Yes, we did.
And where did y'all meet?
We went to Eddie's house.
In Lancaster?
Yes, sorry.
Do you recall about when that was?
Early April.
And did you meet his family?
Yes, I met his mom, Jody, that night.
And did you and Eddie subsequently get involved in a relationship?
Yes, we started dating casually for a few weeks, and then around May, we decided to date exclusively.
Okay. And tell us kind of what Eddie was like. What attracted you to him?
He was very outgoing, very charismatic, very goofy, always joking around. We were very active. When we would hang out, we would spend a lot of time outdoors, which was something that I was definitely interested in.
Both y'all enjoyed being in the outdoors?
Correct.
Did you ever go hunting with him?
Yes, a few times.
You knew Eddie was a Marine veteran.
Yes.
Did he ever talk much about his experience in the military?
No, not until much later on in the relationship. But early on, I just knew that he had been a Marine.
And so in May of 2012, y'all decided that you would just date each other, correct?
Correct.
And where were you living at that time?
I had an apartment out in the Dallas-Richardson area.
Really?
And he was living in Lancaster at home.
Yes.
So how far apart are y'all?
Depending on traffic, it can be anywhere from a 20-minute drive to a 2-hour drive. But it's about 20 miles apart.
Would you see each other much during the week?
Early on, we didn't, but towards the end, we are spending most every weekend together.
And towards the end, you're talking January.
Correct.
Did you know that Eddie, while you were dating him, was on any kind of medication?
I was not aware of him taking any medication. I knew he had been prescribed medications, but I did not know what they were.
When y'all were dating, there's been a lot of talk about Eddie smoking marijuana. Did you ever see him smoke marijuana?
Yes.
What kind of effect would it have on him when he smoked marijuana?
It really just relaxed him. He would be more calm, maybe make a few jokes, but no real significant effect that I ever noticed.
Did he smoke a lot?
In my opinion, yes. But I don't smoke, so any's more than I would.
Did that become a area of concern between you, that you're smoking pot?
It did.
But when he smoked it, he wouldn't get aggressive or out of control.
No, never.
Wouldn't get violent.
No.
Well, you're aware of an incident that happened at his house in September of 2012 when the family was gathered there. Right?
Yes.
Were you there?
Yes, I was there earlier in the evening.
Okay. And Eddie had been drinking, and I guess everybody was drinking, weren't they?
Yes, it was a party. There were a lot of beers around.
Were you there when Eddie and his dad got into a fight?
No, I was not.
You'd already left.
Yes.
But you're aware that happened.
Yes.
And you're aware that Eddie was subsequently taken by the police to the Green Oaks Hospital.
Yes.
You familiar with the Green Oaks Hospital?
Yes, it was actually a block away from the apartment I was living at the time.
And what is the Green Oaks Hospital?
It's a psychiatric hospital.
Did you go visit Eddie in September of 2012 when he was in the Green Oaks or subsequently transferred to the VA hospital?
I was not able to visit him at Green Oaks because I believe he was only there for the night, but I did visit him once he was transferred to the VA.
And what was he like while he was in the VA?
Upset, cheerful. He had asked me to come stay with me at my apartment. At the time, I didn't know the extent of what had happened. It was my understanding that he and his dad had been drinking and they got into a fight and that his parents had called the cops on him. I later found out what had actually occurred, so I agreed to let him come and stay with me, and they eventually released him to my care a few days later.
Okay, so in September of 2012, he comes to live with you and you had a roommate, is that correct?
Yes, Gabriella Lucero was my roommate at the time.
And at that point in time, in September of 2012, was Eddie working?
Not at that time, no. He was mowing lawns occasionally for a real estate agent in the area, but not a really reliable job.
So he at some point went to work for Donna Taylor at the cabinet shop.
Yes, it was around the first week that he was staying with me that Donna had been in contact with him for him to begin working at the cabinet shop.
Okay, so he was living with you up around the Plano area, Richardson.
Yeah.
And going to the cabinet shop that Donna Taylor owned to work.
Correct.
How long did he live with you back in September of 2012?
A little less than a month.
And so y'all, for that month, or a little less than a month, y'all saw each other every day.
Correct.
And how was it?
He was fine.
No incidents, no outbursts, no nothing?
No, nothing.
Y'all go to work, come home, and be a couple.
Yes, exactly.
And then Eddie, after about a month or a little less than a month, did he move back home
Yes.
to Lancaster?
Yes.
And did y'all continue to date?
We had taken a break from each other. I think we moved in too quickly, so we had begun to get on each other's nerves. But we did still see each other periodically.
Kept in contact?
Yes, and around Thanksgiving is when we started dating back again.
Okay. So about Thanksgiving of 2012, the break was over and you decided you would date each other again.
Correct.
At some point in time, he actually moved back in with you, correct?
No, he didn't move back in. He would come and stay weekends with me, but he never stayed for more than the weekend.
Okay. So after September, when he lived with you, he never lived back in that apartment.
No, he would just come and stay for the weekends.
Mid-January of 2013, did you have a chance to go visit with Eddie in Lancaster, his mom and dad's house?
Yes.
What was the purpose of you going down there?
I had gotten a phone call from Eddie early Monday morning. I don't remember the exact date, and he had seemed upset. And I was in the process of getting ready, so I kind of got off the phone, and then I went to work. And then a few hours later, his uncle Jamie had called me expressing concerns about Eddie. So I decided to leave from work to go check on him. And he was very visibly upset. He wasn't speaking. He was just sitting on this couch in the living room staring at the wall for several hours. So I ended up staying with him for a few days until he seemed to be more himself. And then I went back to my apartment in Dallas. Most of the time he just sat there staring at the wall, wasn't really acknowledging my presence. Then he would break into tears, and then he'd be laughing, and then he'd go back to silence. It was very erratic behavior.
Where were his parents?
Jody, I believe she was there that weekend, and Raymond was in Hereford.
So you spent a couple of days with him to make sure that he was okay?
Yeah, Jody had to go to work, so I was staying with him. I had taken a few days off of work myself just to be with him. He wasn't going into the cabinet shop, and I was concerned about him, so I stayed with him just to see that he was okay.
On January 19th. Why was he was at your apartment, correct?
Yes, that Thursday he had called me very upset, and he asked me to come get him. So I drove out to Lancaster, and I pulled up in front of his house, and he came running out of the house and jumped in my car screaming, "Go, go, go." And I tried to get him to tell me what was going on, but he wouldn't. He just kept screaming at me to go. So we got back to my apartment. Everything was fine. We went to bed, had a nice night. He stayed at the apartment that Friday while I went to work. I came home and we went to dinner at my parents' house that Friday night. Then we got back and we were getting ready to go to bed, and Eddie got really upset with me. And I don't really know where it came from, but he started calling me names, accusing me of drug usage, trying to steal his soul. And then he kept insisting that I take him back to Lancaster because he was going to die that night, and he wanted to say goodbye to his mom before he died.
This is on January 19th.
This is the Friday.
I'm sorry.
Yes, so the Friday. I don't like driving at night, so I told him that if he really wanted to go, I would take him back in the morning. He was very upset with me, calling me a crack whore, telling me I was a demon, that I was trying to steal his soul, that nothing I did mattered.
Did this surprise you?
He had never spoken to me that way before now.
So this was
It was very out of character.
out of character.
Yes. So I eventually went and took him to go get some cigarettes to calm him down. And he smoked a cigarette on our patio. Then we came inside.
Was he smoking marijuana?
No,
Not at all.
not to my knowledge, no. Never when I was with him. We went inside and he went and got one of the bottles of vodka that we had in our apartment, and he poured 2 shot glasses and he told me to take a shot with him. But the week prior, he had made a commitment to me that he was going to get clean, stop drinking, stop smoking, so I wouldn't take it. But he took a shot.
Is that all you drank?
That's all he drank that I ever saw. I wasn't with him that Friday during the day, but Friday that night, he only had that 1 shot.
Well, you seen him intoxicated, haven't you?
Yes.
At that point in time, did he seem intoxicated to you?
No.
Okay. Did it seem high on marijuana or intoxicated on liquor?
No.
Then what happened?
He eventually calmed down enough. I told him, if you're going to die tonight, let's go to bed and let's lay down and go to bed. So we went to bed and we woke up the next day and he seemed to be in better spirits. And he asked me to take him to this attorney's office that had handled his DUI case.
Would this be the 19th?
Yes, a Saturday morning, correct.
January 19th?
Yes. So I went to get ready. I told him if he wanted me to take him, I would take him. So I asked him to go look up the address or get the address while I was getting ready. I came out after getting ready and I was like, okay, well, let's go. And he was sitting on our couch and he was wearing a light blue polo that he had gotten from one of my brothers.
This was in the morning?
Yes, probably 10 o'clock-ish in the morning. And he was visibly shaking, and he had sweat through the shirt to the point where you could see very large stains. And I was like, okay, let's go. And
Did
he,
that concern you that he was sweating through his shirt?
yeah, I tried to get him to get a glass of water, tried to ask him what was going on. He didn't want water, he didn't want to talk about it. So I asked him if he was ready to go. And at the time, we had decorative ninja swords by our front door. So when we got towards the front door, he grabbed one of those swords and said, "No, we're not going anywhere." And proceeded to insist that people were out to get us and we needed to stay in the apartment because the apartment was safe.
And you had been with him all morning,
Yes,
got up with him,
yes.
and had not smoked any marijuana up to that point.
No, there was no marijuana.
Had not drank any alcohol up to that point.
He had had that one shot that Friday night, but that was all that I saw him have.
But on the morning of the 19th,
There was no alcohol, no. He asked me to call the attorney. We called Raymond, we called Jody. He kept insisting that we couldn't leave, that people were out to get us.
and where was your roommate during this?
She was in her room at the time, and I had texted her and said, Eddie's in a mood, stay in your room as long as you can. But she had a second job that she was getting ready to go to. So she eventually came out of her room, and he had at that point gone into our kitchen and pulled a knife from the butcher's block and put down the ninja sword and was holding it at his side. And the same thing continued of, you can't go anywhere.
At that point, why didn't you just walk out the door?
He was standing in front of the door.
Well, we had to go to the kitchen at some point, right?
It didn't really dawn on me. I was more concerned about calming him down.
More about calming him down than fleeing.
Yes.
Did he ever threaten you with a knife?
No, he held it at his side, or he would gesture with it. But if I approached him, he put it down. He never held it at me or towards me.
Okay. And how long did this incident last?
I really couldn't give you a good time frame.
Well, is he talking the whole time, or is he just standing there? What's going on?
A little bit of both, talking about how they were out to get us, or when I would ask, let's put this down, put the knife down, he would say no, that he needed it to protect us. But as far as how long that lasted, it seemed like it lasted a lot longer than it probably actually did.
Did you ever hear him make any threats to your roommate?
No. We were all in the same room together.
So at some point, your roommate texts a friend of hers who's a police officer. Is that correct?
Yes, the duty officer at her second job, I believe his name is Adam, she texted him.
And eventually the police came to your apartment there, right?
Yes.
And as a result of that, on January 19th, Eddie was taken not to jail, but to Green Oaks Hospital again, correct?
Correct.
Right around the corner from your apartment.
Yes.
Do you know how long he stayed in Green Oaks?
I think it was for a few days, but I'm not sure exactly how long.
Were you able to go visit with him?
No.
And you know that subsequently he was transferred again from Green Oaks to the VA hospital.
Yes.
Did you go to the VA hospital and visit with him?
Yes, I believe I saw him 3 times at the VA.
Okay, 3 different occasions you
Yes.
got to go in and visit with him. What was his demeanor like?
The same, upset, tearful, apologetic, but at the same time, he didn't seem to have any recollection of what had happened. He had asked me if he could come back and stay with me after he was released, but there was a trespass order at the apartment, so I had to explain to him that that wasn't possible.
Well, you know that the VA hospital subsequently released him on January 25th.
Yes.
You know that was much to the protest of Eddie's mother, Joe.
Yes.
That has been against your advice too.
I didn't really weigh in on the subject one way or another. I just wanted him to get help.
You didn't talk to the VA about that.
No.
Where does he go to live after the VA releases him on January 25th, 2013?
He went back to Lancaster.
Back to his mom and dad's house?
Yes.
Good. And did you visit with him any after that?
Yes, when he called me and let me know that he had been released, I left Dallas and drove to Lancaster and spent that weekend with him.
And how was he that weekend?
He was on the medication and he seemed better. Towards 5 o'clock at night, it would seem like the medication was fading and he would get depressed and sad and tearful again. But for the most part during the day, he was closer to his normal self.
Okay. So you knew that the VA had prescribed some medication.
Yes.
Were you aware of what kind of medication?
At the time I was helping Eddie out with his paperwork, so I would read the things that he would get, but I couldn't tell you what they are now, or were now.
So you spent a couple of days after he was released down in Lancaster with him. Then did you have an opportunity to see him again after that?
Yes, that week, I believe Jody called me and she was upset because he had been smoking pot. So I had called Eddie and he made statements about gouging his own eyes out and he seemed very upset. So I drove out to Lancaster.
Do you recall what day this was? What date?
I don't remember the date. I believe it was a Monday or a Tuesday, but I don't remember the exact date. I drove out there. My dad actually had followed me out there. I spent a few hours with him just to see if he was okay because I was worried that he might hurt himself.
What was he like?
Just sitting on the couch, staring at the wall. He had a Bible on the floor next to him. He would talk a little bit with me and a little bit with my dad, but not much. And after a few hours, I left.
And then did you have an opportunity to go back to Lancaster after that?
Yes, I went that Friday after I got off of work.
And that would have been February 1st of 2013.
Correct.
That would be the Friday before this incident.
Yes.
Why did you go on February 1st to Lancaster?
It's what we did. We spent weekends together, and after the trespass order, he wasn't allowed at my apartment complex. So if we wanted to see each other, I would have to go to him.
When you got there that Friday, what did y'all do?
By the time I got there, it was dark. I had hit pretty bad traffic, and I showed up. I parked in the front of the house, and I walked around to the back patio because that's how I would get in, is through the back door. And he was sitting on the back patio with his friend Greg, and another guy that I didn't recognize was walking away, and they were sitting out on the back patio smoking marijuana. I was very upset with him. I just sat there and wasn't speaking with him, being probably rather rude to Greg.
You sat there with Greg. You know Greg's last name?
I think it starts with an L, but I don't remember.
Okay. You, Greg, and Eddie were sitting on the back porch, correct?
Yes.
And you know Eddie had a dog, correct?
Yes, I was playing with Gurley because I was so mad at him. I didn't want to focus on anything else, so I was playing with Gurley.
And did Gurley have like a pen or a cage?
We had given her a wire crate that my dog had outgrown, and it was mostly kept out on the back patio.
Okay. So you get there Friday, and Eddie and Greg and this other guys, he's already left. Right?
Yes.
And you're upset because they're smoking marijuana. Is he acting okay otherwise?
Yeah, he seemed fine, but at the same time, I was very angry with him, so I wasn't paying that much attention.
And why were you angry with him?
It had become an issue with us, him smoking. I didn't agree with it, and it seemed to almost take priority when we were spending time together. He would spend a lot of time in the laundry room because it was cold, so that's where he would go and smoke, is in the laundry room. And I would be left sitting out in the living room by myself for an hour or two on end.
Okay. But prior to February 1st, y'all had kind of an agreement that he would reduce his use of marijuana and alcohol.
Yes, the week before the incident in January happened, he had told me that he was going to stop drinking and stop smoking and get clean.
Okay, and did he?
To my knowledge, at the time, he did, yes.
Okay, at least in front of you.
Yes.
Uh, So does Greg eventually on that night, Friday night, does he leave?
Yes, Eddie offered me the pipe at one point, and I told him if he handed it to me, I would smash it. And Greg told me that if I did, I would owe him $80. And I said, fine, but I'll smash it if you hand it to me. And at that point, he got up and left.
You're upset,
I was very upset at that time, yes.
right?
Yes.
So eventually just you and Eddie at the house in Lancaster, correct?
Yes.
That was on 6th Street.
Yes.
Okay. About what time was it when Greg left? Do you remember?
I don't. I know it was really dark outside. It took me a long time to get there, so I'm not sure exactly what time I got there.
What did you and Eddie end up doing the rest of the night?
We went into the house just to sit down. I wanted to talk to him about it, but then he seemed to get really upset and he started staring at this corner in the room and wasn't really acknowledging my presence. And I finally just asked him what was going on, and he wasn't saying anything. And I asked him if he was seeing things, and he said yes.
Because he was seeing things?
Yes. And then I asked him if he was hearing things, and he said yes.
Did he tell you what?
I asked him, and he didn't tell me. He seemed to get upset again, so I tried to calm him down. And then he got up, and he told me that they were listening to us. So he got out a yellow legal pad, and he started writing things on the yellow legal pad. And when I tried to speak to him, he would take his hand and he would cover my mouth because he didn't want them to hear what I had to say.
Okay. Did he tell you who he thought was listening to him?
When he would refer to they, it was typically the government.
Okay. Did he have a fixation that the government was listening in on him?
That was the first time he'd ever said anything about the government listening to me, but he definitely had paranoia about the government out to get him.
So this was Friday night.
Yes.
Did you spend the night there with him?
Yes, I did.
Just you and him?
Yes.
Did you sleep much?
Not really, no. Gurley had torn up his mattress several weeks before, so he was sleeping on an air mattress in the living room. And I think we maybe were laying down for a few hours, and he had gotten up and decided to make breakfast. And so we ate breakfast probably at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And then we went and lay down for a few more hours. So probably 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, we got up again for the day. He was always a very early riser.
That was his habit of getting up early?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the early morning of February 2nd, 2013, correct?
Correct.
Is there a point where y'all take a shower?
Yes. At that time, Eddie was going weeks on end without showering. And the only way that he would shower is if I got in there and actually washed his hair and him for him.
He would not shower?
No.
How long?
Weeks.
Okay, so you got him in the shower? You got in there with him?
Yes.
What happened after the shower?
We got out of the shower and we were talking about what we were going to do, getting ready for the day.
What were y'all gonna do?
We had talked about going bowling. We had talked about going fishing. We had never really made any firm plans. And then he went and got some dip and he put some dip in. And that had been a long-standing disagreement between the two of us. And I got upset with him.
Didn't like him dipping
No, I don't like tobacco products at all.
nasty.
Yes. So we got into a fight over that. And around that time, his Uncle Jamie had called me and told me he was going to come head over to hang out. And I said, okay, well, we're in a fight. So when you get here, I'm going to leave.
Have you met Uncle Jamie before?
Yes, many times.
He and Eddie were tight.
Yes.
And that's Jody's brother.
Yes.
Did you know where he lived?
I had been to his house once or twice, but I'm terrible with directions, so I couldn't tell you the exact city.
Do you recall about what time that Uncle Jamie called?
Probably around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, but I'm not sure specifically.
He said he was on his way.
Yeah, I said I'm gonna come hang out. He was probably about a 30 to 45-minute drive away.
He was in Alvarado.
Yes.
And are you and Eddie kind of not talking at this point, or?
I was upset with him, and he was trying to fill out the application for the Waco VA that Jody had got for him. And previously, whenever he had applications or documents,
Object narrative.
Sustained.
Okay. So you were helping him fill out an application for the VA hospital in Waco.
he had asked me to, but I was upset, so I told him I wouldn't help.
All right. Why was he filling out the VA hospital in Waco application?
It was our attempt to try and get him some help. I had done research on facilities, and apparently the Waco VA has a good reputation. So Jody, I believe, got the application for him.
For his mental health problem.
Correct.
Well, when you wouldn't help him fill out the VA paperwork, did he become upset with you?
He was upset, yes, but basically was telling me just to leave, and I told him I wouldn't leave until Jamie got there.
So he asked you to leave.
Yes.
At some point, Jen, did Eddie propose to you?
The night before, yes.
Okay, tell us about what he did.
We were in the kitchen, and I was getting his medication for him, and I turned around to get something from the cabinet, and when I turned back around to him, he was on his knees, and he asked me to marry him. And I said yes, and he wrapped his arms around my stomach and started crying. And then he got up, and he ate some of Jody's spiced crackers, and then we went to bed.
Okay. Did y'all discuss anything about getting married or?
It had been something that had come up in the past, but never really any specifics.
Okay. So he just out of the blue asked you to marry him?
He'd asked a few times before, but it was when he was in the VA hospital, and I told him no, not until he was allowed to have shoelaces.
And so the next morning, I guess the catalyst for the argument or the disagreement would be that him dipping.
Yes.
And he asked you to leave.
Yes.
And did you end up leaving?
Yes. After Jamie was there for probably about 20 minutes, I left.
Okay, so you were there when Uncle Jamie arrived.
Yes.
And you know about what time he got over there?
I don't remember exactly. It was probably around 10 or 11, but I'm not sure.
And so you go back to your apartment.
I went over to my parents' house. When I would stay with Eddie, I would leave my dog with my parents. So I went to go there, and my mom and I went to lunch.
And you had left Eddie at home with Uncle Jamie.
Yes.
And up to that point, you hadn't seen him smoking marijuana.
Not since the night before.
Or drinking any alcohol.
No.
So after you leave, he and Jamie, when is that? Did you ever try to contact him again?
Jamie called me later on after I'd had lunch with my mom and told me that Eddie had just walked away and he didn't know where he was, and he asked me if I knew.
Do you recall, you said it was after you had lunch with your mom, do you recall about what time that was?
Maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2, 3 o'clock.
Okay. Want to know if Eddie was with you?
Yeah, he wanted to know if I knew where he went.
Did you ask Jamie where he was?
Jamie didn't seem to have an idea of where he was, and that's why he was calling me. and I told him that maybe he was going to be meeting with Chris Kyle because I knew they had talked about meeting, and I knew the phone number was on the fridge, so I told Jamie to try calling him to see if maybe he was with him.
Okay. Did you call Chris Kyle?
Yes, Jamie said that he attempted to call Chris but wasn't able to get through, so he gave me the number, and I called him and left him a message. And pretty quickly after I left the voicemail, Chris texted me back and said that Eddie was with him.
Okay. So Chris Kyle texted you back. How did you know it was Chris Kyle?
It was the same number that I had called.
Okay. You saw it on your phone
Yes.
and you didn't actually talk to Chris Kyle.
No. He sent me that text message, and then I called Jamie to let him know. And then Jamie said, okay, I'm putting Girly up and locking the door. Let Eddie know. So I texted Chris back saying what Jamie had told me. And that was the extent of the conversation.
And when's the next time that you hear anything about it?
Several hours later, and I don't remember who first called, I believe it was Laura, called and said that Eddie had just shown up at her house and that something had happened. And he said he was heading up north. And at the time, my apartment is north of Lancaster. So she told me to go where he wouldn't know where I would be.
Did you know that Eddie and Chris Kyle had arranged some kind of an outing?
I knew they had talked about meeting up, but never that there was a formalized time.
Okay. You did not know that Chris Kyle was going to come over that Saturday and pick up Eddie?
No, I did not.
When you left Eddie and Uncle James that morning, when you said you and Eddie had some kind of disagreement,
Yes.
by the time you left, did that dissipated some, or what was the situation?
No, I was still very upset with him. I left because he asked me to, and I told him whenever he was done, and pardon my language, but told him whenever he was done being a dick, that he should call me. And then I left.
Was he upset?
He seemed to be, yes.
A whole lot, or just a little bit?
He seemed more annoyed that I was still there.
Just annoyed?
Yeah.
So once you text Chris Kyle and he texted you back that Eddie was with him, when's the next kind of communication you get from anybody regarding Eddie?
A few hours later, I believe either Laura or Jody called me and told me that something had happened and that he said something about heading up north and that I should head somewhere he wouldn't be able to find me.
And you know, eventually Eddie got arrested and put in
Yes.
Erath County Jail.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll pass it on.
Now, are y'all still together?
No.
I'll pass the witness.
No other questions?
No, you may step down. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I've been advised by the attorneys that that's the last witness. It's really, as you can probably figure out by now, kind of hard to predict how long one witness is going to take or not take. And we try to schedule these things so that we can get them, use the time wisely. I promised you an early day. You're getting an earlier day than I actually promised you. But I'm going to follow with another promise. I've been advised by the attorneys that tomorrow and possibly the next day have a lot of witnesses. It's going to take some time. So please take advantage of this afternoon.